We're here with Kevin Marino Cabrera, who is running for Miami-Dade County Commission District 6. This is the seat that's currently held by Commissioner Rebecca Sosa. So, Kevin, thank you for coming and joining us.
Thank you, Nestor, and thank you, MiamiSprings.com. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to being part of this interview.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. And, to start off, tell us a little bit about kind of your background growing up.
Absolutely. So I went to school not too far from here. I started going to elementary in West Lab in Coral Gables, and then did middle school and high school in South Miami Middle and South Miami Senior High, which are just outside of the district, but not too far from the district in terms of the heart of District 6. Right now I live towards 8th Street and 47th Avenue, and this is the area my wife and I had decided to form a family, and that's why this is important to me. Now that we have a vacancy in the seat after Commissioner Sosa, after her 22 years of service, and we want to make sure that whoever takes over the seat, make sure that we have strong leadership that's advocating for the residents and the small businesses in this district.
And Kevin, so after South Miami, did you go to schools here in South Florida, or did you go elsewhere?
So yes, I went to Miami-Dade Community College, where I graduated with an AA in public administration, and then I went on to Florida International University, FIU, where I got my degree in political science, and graduated in honors back in 2013, I believe.
All right. So it sounds like you had an early interest in politics. When you graduate from college, and what did you do after that?
So I tell folks that I definitely had an early interest in politics. I remember that when me and my mom used to go to Publix, we'd go get our groceries, and I'd say like 8 years old, and she used to say, well, you want to come to me the groceries? I say, absolutely, I'll go with you. And then I'd say, well, I'm going to go get changed. And she said, well, what is it that you're going to put on? I said, well, I'm going to put on a suit. And then I'd get my dad's briefcase, and she'd be like, well, why are you putting on a suit, and why are you getting a briefcase? I said, one day I'm going to run for office, and these folks, they're either going to decide to vote for me or not, and I got to make sure that when they see me, it's in a respectful and a respectable and in a professional manner. Right. So since a young age, I've always been inclined to serve our community. I'm as a first generation Cuban American in this community. We've seen what we don't have in our homelands, in our families' homelands, and it's very much in my heart to serve our community, to make sure we can have the best district, the best county for our folks to live in.
All right, so we're 2013, you graduate, and then what got you, obviously you study politics, but how did you get into politics? How did that all get started?
So a lot of folks know me from the political side of things, but many years prior to that, I have tons of experience aside from that in the private sector. I started working, I think in 2000, since I was 16 years old, in different jobs, and then one of my first leadership roles was running a small pharmacy in Little Havana, and then I moved on to being a domestic operations manager at a freight forwarding company not too far from here, in the kind of Sweetwater Doral area. And I think those are the types of careers and jobs in the private sector that teach you to kind of be an out-of-the-box thinker and to think of new ideas on how we can innovate and move our county forward and have new efficiencies. In 2014, I got involved in politics, and I've worked on a number of different campaigns, and here we are today running for office myself. I always thought it might happen, but it's one of those things that, as many of you know, now Senator Avila is running for the seat, and a few different dominoes fell into effect, and we're blessed to now be in this race and to be running to be an advocate for the folks in District 6.
All right, so one of the things that you got was an endorsement from the former president of the United States. That's not easy. So I understand you were involved in the campaign before. So tell us a little bit about your involvement with that campaign and his endorsement.
Yeah, so I was President Trump's state director in his 2020 re-election here in Florida. It was an honor to be part of those efforts. We had a historic gain in terms of his victory here in Florida. He won by 3.5 percentage points, which Florida-wise, that's huge. That's amazing. And not only that, but we had immense efforts in doing, registering new voters, and we're seeing, kind of the fruit of our labor today, where you have for the first time ever more registered Republicans than Democrats in the state of Florida. So like when I spoke with President Trump on the phone after we had been in conversations for some time, he knew I was running. He encouraged me. He thought it'd be great, and he told me, you fought for me, and now I'll fight for you, and we want to make sure that we support those efforts. And President Trump's agenda was to put America first. And in my eyes, we got to make sure we put the residents of Miami-Dade County first. Because I think for far too long, we've had a lot of career politicians and different folks in there that have not done that. I'm not a career politician. I'm running for office for the first time, and my goal is to make sure that we put the residents and small businesses of this county first, because I think that those are the folks that have been left behind for years and years and years.
You're going for District 6 here, Miami-Dade County. What are kind of your biggest goals? I mean, you talked about putting the residents first, but like, what are some of the biggest issues that are important to you and that you want to fight for, and let's say would be your top priorities if you go in?
Absolutely. And listen, first of all, District 6, we've been saying a lot of District 6, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. It's roughly half of a congressional district. You've got South Hialeah, you've got Miami Springs, Virginia Gardens, the airport in its entirety, Flagami, Grapeland, Northern Coral Gables, Shenley Park, Coral Terrace, West Miami, and then 67th Avenue, and the Palmetto, all the way down to Glenver Heights. So it's a huge district, very diverse, very different. And some of the priorities that we have are things that are very near and dear to me because I've faced them as a resident of this county. I think building and permitting is one of the biggest issues that I think we need to fix. I, as a resident in this county, took 6.5 to 7 months to get a septic to sewer conversion permit. And yes, I understand that not everybody's trying to do a septic to sewer conversion, but I think it's a good example of how the building department works and how, the bureaucracy that we face in getting these permits done. And I tell folks, I try to not just find problems, I like to find solutions. My understanding is that Jacksonville has an ordinance that you get your permits in 30 days. And if you don't get your permits in 30 days, you get a punch list that doesn't change. Because one of the issues I faced, trying to get my permits, was that every single time they came out to my house, they found different things. And I'm not talking about, something that's gonna make my house, collapse. But I'm talking about little things here and there that they were nitpicking. I'm saying, if you came to my house once, you should find all of the things that we should fix to get our permits the first time. Not that you have to come out an additional 5 to 10 times to find a different issue every time. And I think, again, we've got to make sure that we have a government that's working for the people. And maybe if we had a building department that would process these permits in a timely manner, maybe folks wouldn't be doing illegal additions. Maybe folks would be going to the building department if it wasn't such an arduous process. I went there to 117 on Coral Way, and I was like a ping pong ball. They'd send you from one window to another, and it was probably one of the most frustrating things I dealt with in my life. Another thing that's very important to me is procurement. I think you look at the procurement department, and it's, you see that things start off and they take forever to actually get done. And I think we have to have a county, as we know, government procures everything. We've got to make sure that these things are done in an efficient manner. And then lastly, transportation, which I tell people is the elephant in the room. I think for many, many years, voters have been kind of not exactly been done a misservice regarding the half penny. The half penny was passed nearly 22 years ago, if not more, for new transportation projects. And what we've seen is that it has not been used for that. What we've seen is that it's been pillaged time and time again to pay for operating costs.
Yeah.
While that may be legal, that's not right. Voters did not vote for that. When we voted for new projects, for new capital improvements, not for them to use those funds for other things and to be substituting funds. And I think we've got to make sure that those funds are used properly, or we should give them back to the people. Because quite frankly, I think that if we don't fix these issues, if we don't fix our transportation issues, we're going to be the next Los Angeles, where you're spending 2 to 3 hours a day in traffic to get from point A to point B.
We're getting close to it, especially
we
during rush hour.
Listen, when I leave my house, I don't care where I'm going. The minimum that I account for is 30 minutes.
At least.
Because you got to get there, you got to park, you got to deal with all these hassles. And I think we've got to make sure that we are making people's lives easier. I'm running for office to make sure that we work on making folks' daily lives better. Another thing that I see, that I hear about all the time is, when we open up the road, how about we do everything at once? How about we don't open the road this week and then we open it next week for a different issue? And that means we're stopping traffic different times, we're inconveniencing folks, we're creating more traffic. We need more synchronization within our county. We need to make sure that these departments are working together, that whatever it is we're doing, whether it be a utility company or the county, that we're synchronized and working together so we're not inconveniencing folks.
One of the issues that's come up in the county, in fact, it was just recently at a special meeting, and then it's going to be coming up in July, is the issue of annexation. And so you've got 4 municipalities that are annexing unincorporated enclaves of Miami-Dade County, and that include City of Doral, Medley, Virginia Gardens, and of course here in Miami Springs. What are your thoughts on annexation? and give us kind of feedback. And I know this kind of maybe new
So-
area, but tell us what you
So I'm very troubled by what I've seen. What I've seen a lot is I've seen a lot of cherry picking. I've seen a lot of cherry picking where we're picking this area, picking that area, and leaving different areas behind. And then what does that result in? That results in we're picking areas that don't even have voters that are deciding. We're picking areas that are run by that only have businesses. So and a lot of them are small businesses. So what does that result in? In some cases, a 400% tax increase for small businesses. I don't think that's right. I think if you were going to be increasing taxes, if you were going to, be annexing or doing any of these sorts of things, voters need to have a voice. Businesses need to have a voice. You can't just cherry pick and decide which is you want to do and then just unilaterally increase taxes by 400%. So I think we need to do a deep dive into this and figure out better ways to do this. But I'm very troubled by what I've seen thus far, and it's not very encouraging, the level of transparency behind this.
Another kind of hot button issue has been housing. We've seen prices go through the roof here in Miami Springs for a single family home, but we look at Miami Springs a lot, but anywhere through Miami-Dade, the prices of housing has gone through the roof. And the demand to live here continues to increase. Tell us what your thoughts are on housing and ways that it can be addressed.
So again, I think it goes back to the building and permitting issue, right? We talk about how we want to be environmentally friendly and do all these things, yet we take 7.5 months to do a septic to sewer conversion. And that's a good example of how long, we say we have an inventory crisis in this county, we have an affordability crisis, but yet you're taking 7.5 months to issue permits. And
for one tiny thing, not a whole house.
For one tiny thing, and I could go on and on about the horror stories I've heard about housing and about developments and different things where it's just unfair and it's not working out. And I think we need to focus our efforts on not just building more affordable housing, because folks talk a lot about affordable housing, and I think we need to make sure we generate more of that, but also workforce housing, because we have a workforce that little by little is kind of being pushed out of this county. We already know that roughly 2/3 of county employees don't live here. They live in Broward County because they can't afford to live in Miami-Dade County. And now we're getting to the point where more and more folks, not just on the public side, but on the private side, can't afford to live here because there is no workforce housing. Where do our police officers, firefighters, nurses, teachers, where are they supposed to live if we don't build more workforce housing? And by the way, those folks don't qualify for affordable housing. They're in the workforce housing category. So we've got to make sure that we're encouraging developers, we're encouraging the creation, and we're building more workforce housing in addition to affordable housing, and maybe focus our efforts in investing in building that up within our county. Or again, similar to the transportation issue, we're going to result in a situation where we might be like the Keys, where it's almost impossible for the workforce to live in the Keys. A lot of them have to live in the south part of Dade County and get bussed in. And I think that's unacceptable. We've got to make sure that we're creating housing, workforce housing, for the folks that live in this community, for the folks that work in this community, to make sure that they can work, live, and play here.
See that workforce housing kind of look like, and I'm going to ask that question and also kind of touch on the RTZ plan that Commissioner Gilbert has brought up, where in his case he wanted kind of districts around the rapid transit zone so that you could have higher density housing near transit to allow, let's call it workforce, to be able to live and then easily transit to, let's say, downtown or other workforce areas. Obviously here in certain residential areas, there's concern over zoning control and letting low density areas remain low density. Clearly it appears, look, there's no choice but to kind of build up in certain areas, but give us kind of your feedback of, hey, if we're going to add more inventory, look, I think there's no way to get around it. You're going to need to add more inventory. We got to go up here in Miami-Dade County. What does that look like? Like, where are the areas that we can go up, and what do you think of what that might look like?
So I think we do have to go up in Miami-Dade County, but we have to do it in the right places. And I think the municipalities should continue to maintain control over zoning within their jurisdiction, because I think that's important. That's in essence why many of these cities are created, so that we have local control over over Miami Springs, over the city of Coral Gables, or the city of Virginia Gardens. You've got to make sure that those folks, the elected officials there, the people there, have input on those matters, and that we maintain zoning control at the local level. With the same token, we got to find areas where it is appropriate, which is not in a residential community or in a residential area part of town, where it is appropriate to build up. And we can do so in those areas. But it's extremely important that we maintain local control over zoning, because that is in essence the whole point of having cities. to make sure that they can provide those services that are closest to the people and to handle these issues such as zoning.
Excellent. Other issues that we touched on RTZ, we touched on annexation. Any other issues that are and building and zoning and some of the bureaucratic issues with the county, but some of the other issues that are kind of top of mind for you that are important to you?
Again, I think it's really building and permitting. It's one of the big issues I see. I think having more efficiency within the government and making sure that we fix our transit system. Folks, I hear it all the time. They spend 2 hours, sometimes an hour a day combined, a round trip, in traffic. Those are hours that they're never going to get back in their lifetime. Those are hours that they're going to lose. And we've got to make sure that we're trying to figure out ways in which we can provide a better environment, a better transit for folks to be able to, go to work and go back home. So guess what? Their life gets a little bit better. So they're not spending so much of their lives in transit. And ultimately, what we've got to make sure is that we have a government that works for the people, not the other way around. And I think a lot of times what we see is that the government becomes cumbersome and it becomes a bureaucracy that's in the way of this. And I think we've got to cut the red tape and we've got to make sure that we have a government that is working for the people and a government that makes sure that we put the residents and the small businesses of this county first.
Kevin, the election's around the corner. Tell us, when do people have to go out and vote?
So August 23rd is the election, but mid-July you'll start receiving, if you vote by mail, you'll start receiving your ballots. It'll probably be the week of July 20th. And then 2 weeks prior to July 23rd, you'll have early voting. So that's when folks can go out. I tell folks, make sure you go out and vote early, because you want to make sure that you get there. You don't want to have to deal with if it rains that day or any sort of a thing that could come across. You want to make sure that you're able to cast your ballot.
And final question, why should people come and vote for you?
Absolutely. Listen, my name is Kevin Marino Cabrera, and I'm running again to be a voice for the resident and small businesses of this county. I am not a career politician, and I think I bring a new voice, efficiency, and a new way of thinking to our county. And if you're looking for somebody who's going to innovate and fight for you, then I'm your guy.
Excellent. Kevin, and if people want to get a hold of you, learn more about you, what's your website or Instagram and that sort of thing?
So you can go to kevinmarinocabrera.com, or you can go to Elect Cabrera on Instagram, and that's the easiest way to find us.
Excellent. Kevin, we really appreciate your time, and thank you for participating with the Miami Springs audience and MiamiSprings.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and see the folks of Miami Springs as I go knocking on your doors nearby.
Thank you.